You have cleared the cache. You have purged the system noise. Now, your mind is a blank canvas, but emptiness is not the destination. It is the starting point. Most people fear this void, so they rush to fill it with the same old patterns. But you are not most people. You are the architect. You are no longer running on the operating system pre-installed by society. It is time to write the source code for your own life. This is not aimless freedom. This is freedom built on your own principles. Welcome to the final stage of liberation, establishing your agency. Your architecture begins now. Most people spend their entire lives running on an operating system, OS, that they did not install. They are running on the default settings of their culture, their parents, their schooling, and the algorithmic feedback loops of the platforms they inhabit. They are not the programmers of their own lives. They are merely users with very limited permissions. The most profound realization you can have is that your behavior, your reactions, and your beliefs are all software that can be uninstalled, reconfigured, or replaced. The OS of you consists of three primary layers: the kernel, beliefs, the API, communication, and the application layer, habits. The kernel, core beliefs, this is the root level of your existence. It contains the axioms of your life, the things you believe to be true without even questioning them. If your kernel contains the belief, I am not enough, then every application you run, your relationships, your career, your habits, will be plagued by bugs of self-sabotage. You cannot patch self-sabotage if the root kernel is corrupt. You must recompile your belief structure. You must audit every deep-seated assumption you have about reality and ask, is this code still serving me? Or is it a legacy script from a version of myself that no longer exists? The API, communication interface. This is how you interface with the world. How do you articulate your boundaries? How do you negotiate your value? How do you say no to the noise? If your API is weak, you will be hacked by the agendas of others. An effective API is one that is hardened. It rejects malicious requests from the environment, toxic people, soul-sucking media, while allowing only high-value data to integrate with your system. The application layer, daily habits. These are the processes that run in the background. Most people have bloatware in their application layer, habits that run in the background, consuming CPU cycles without providing any value. Checking your phone within 5 minutes of waking up is bloatware. Mindless consumption is bloatware. The architecture of agency requires that you ruthlessly delete these processes. You must optimize your application layer for performance. To build the OS of you, you must start with a bare metal install. This means you go back to the absolute foundations of your values. What do you actually care about when the algorithms are off and the internet is down? That answer is your new source code. You then write your standard operating procedures, SOPs. How do you handle failure? How do you handle success? By defining these protocols, you eliminate the need to think in moments of crisis. You become a highly optimized, automated machine of your own design. You are no longer reacting to the world. You are deploying your own processes onto it. You cannot run a high-performance OS on broken hardware or in a corrupted environment. Most people treat their environment as a passive backdrop. They live, work, and sleep in spaces that were designed by chance or by someone else's agenda. If you want to achieve cognitive sovereignty, You must transition from being an inhabitant of your environment to being the architect of it. Your environment is not just where you are. It is a set of sensory inputs that either reinforces your OS or hacks it. The physical interface. Your physical space is the primary interface for your OS. If your desk is cluttered, your cognitive cache is cluttered. If your bedroom is filled with blue light emitting devices, your system recovery, sleep, is compromised. An architect of agency curates their space with ruthless precision. Every object in your room should serve a function, either to enhance focus, to facilitate deep rest, or to provide aesthetic inspiration. If an object does not serve these functions, it is noise that degrades your system's performance. The social firewall. Your environment is also composed of people. Your social circle is essentially a network protocol. If you are constantly plugged into a network that transmits high levels of negativity, drama, and low-frequency ambition, your system will inevitably catch a virus. You must implement a social firewall. This doesn't mean you have to be hostile, but you must be discerning. You should only maintain deep-level protocols, deep relationships with people who are aligned with your source code. Everyone else should be on a guest network. Limited access, limited influence. Information architecture. You must also redesign the digital environment. Most people's desktop, their phone screen, their browser homepage, is a minefield of distractions. A designer of agency cleans their digital interface. If you don't need an app to function, uninstall it. If a website is constantly pinging for your attention, block it. You are designing a space where deep work is the default setting. You should be able to enter a flow state by simply sitting down at your station because your environment is pre-configured to trigger that specific state of performance. The goal is to create a positive feedback loop between you and your surroundings. When your environment is optimized, it rewards you for being your best self. When you are tired, your environment should naturally guide you to rest. When you are ready to produce, your environment should naturally guide you to flow. You are building a world that acts as an extension of your own will. This is the ultimate form of environmental design, a space where your OS can run at maximum speed with minimum resistance. Willpower is the most overrated resource in the human system. It is a high-cost operation. Relying on willpower to get things done is like running a computer processor at 100% capacity just to keep the desktop open. It's inefficient, it generates excessive heat, stress, and eventually the system crashes. A true architect of agency does not use willpower. They use algorithms of habit. Habits are simply pre-compiled scripts that the brain executes without needing to engage the prefrontal cortex. To design your life, you must transform your desired outcomes into repeatable, low-friction algorithms. An algorithm is not a goal. A goal is a static target. An algorithm is a dynamic process. It is a logical sequence. If, trigger, then, action, else, recovery. The trigger, input. This is the entry point of your habit algorithm. Most people rely on vague triggers like, I will study more. This is not an algorithm, it is a wish. A valid trigger must be specific, sensory, and anchored to an existing system. Example, when I close my laptop at 6 p.m., trigger, I will immediately put on my running shoes. Action. The trigger must be a physical event or a specific time that leaves no room for negotiation. The execution, processing. This is the action phase. To make your algorithm runnable, you must minimize the activation energy. If your goal is to practice guitar, don't leave the guitar in its case in the closet. That is a high activation energy cost. Place the guitar on a stand in the middle of your living room. The algorithm should be so easy that it is harder not to do it than to do it. You are not building motivation, you are reducing friction. The feedback loop, iteration. Every algorithm needs an output. How do you know the execution was successful? You need a reward signal. But this signal must be internal, not external. If you rely on external rewards, likes, money, praise, you are giving control of your dopamine system to someone else. Create an internal reward. The satisfaction of completion, the feeling of mastery, the evidence of your own discipline. When you see your own growth as the reward, you create a self-sustaining loop. Most people fail because they try to write complex scripts too early. They want to go from a sedentary lifestyle to a marathon runner in 1 week. This is a system failure. You must build your algorithms incrementally. Write one line of code, test it, stabilize it, and then add the next. A robust OS is not built in a day. It is built through constant version updates. Once an algorithm is stable, it becomes a background process. You no longer think about it, you simply are it. That is the moment you stop trying to live an optimized life and start being an optimized human. In a world addicted to external metrics, likes, followers, salary, and status, the architect of agency must develop an internal scorecard. If you measure your success by the same metrics the system uses, you are still operating on the system's software. You are still a user in their database. Sovereignty begins the moment you define your own KPIs, key performance indicators. The Sovereignty Index. This is not about how much you produce, but how much you control. Do you control your schedule? Do you control your attention? Do you control your emotional response to stimuli? If your output is high but your control is low, you are not sovereign. You are an overworked laborer in your own life. The metric of sovereignty is the ratio of intentional time to reactive time. If you spend 80% of your day reacting to emails, pings, and other people's emergencies, your sovereignty index is dangerously low. Eliminating vanity metrics. Most modern success metrics are vanity metrics. They look good on a dashboard but have no impact on the long-term stability of your OS. Social media engagement, for example, is a vanity metric. It feels like growth, but it is actually a liability. It forces you to adjust your behavior to fit the algorithm's expectations. True sovereignty metrics are integrity metrics. They measure the gap between what you promised yourself you would do and what you actually did. This is the only score that matters. Defining your own utility. What does utility mean in your life? For a sovereign individual, utility is defined by the degree to which your actions align with your chosen principles. If your principle is deep knowledge, then a metric like hours spent in deep study is a high utility metric. If your principle is freedom, then flexibility in my calendar is your ultimate KPI. You must audit your life and discard every metric that was imposed upon you by society. True sovereignty is the ability to say, I am winning, even when the world sees you as failing, because your internal metrics are being met. You are building a life that is unhackable because the criteria for your success are not public. They are private, rigorous, and entirely your own. Sovereignty is not an end state. It is a point of departure. Once you have reclaimed your mind and optimized your internal systems, you become a node of stability in a chaotic network. Building the new world is not about retreating to a cabin in the woods. It is about projecting your optimized OS onto the environment around you. It is about creating structures, businesses, communities, art, or just better ways of living that operate on principles of sovereignty rather than dependency. The principle of generative creation. The old world is extractive. It feeds on your attention, your data, and your insecurities. The new world you are building must be generative. It should create more value than it consumes. Every action you take as a sovereign individual should leave your environment more organized, more clear, and more capable than you found it. When you interact with others, are you adding to their noise, or are you providing a signal? Building sovereign networks. You are the average of the protocols you interact with. To build a new world, you must seek out and connect with other architects. These are not just friends, they are peer-level protocols. When you unite with other sovereign individuals, you create sovereign networks. Communities that are resilient to the noise of the mainstream algorithm. These networks don't rely on centralized control. They rely on shared values and mutual sovereignty. This is how you shift the culture, not by fighting the old system, but by building a new one that makes the old one obsolete. The ripple effect of agency. Your autonomy is contagious. When people see someone who is truly in control of their attention, someone who is not hijacked by constant digital pings, someone who is calm amidst chaos, they naturally gravitate toward that person. Your sovereign presence is an architectural blueprint for others. You don't need to preach, you just need to demonstrate. By living your principles, you invite others to ask, how are you operating at such high efficiency? That is your window to share the code. The new world is not a physical location. It is a shared reality between individuals who have decided that their minds belong to themselves. It is the cumulative effect of 1 million people deciding to turn off the noise and turn on their own agency. You are building the foundation of a civilization that values clarity over volume and agency over addiction. You have reached the end of the series, but you are only at the beginning of your evolution. Sovereignty is not a destination you arrive at. It is a discipline you practice every single day. The forever architect understands that the system will always try to reinstall its bloatware. The noise will always try to return. The algorithms will always evolve to be more addictive. This is why you don't finish building your life. You are in a state of permanent construction. You are a forever architect. You iterate, you update, you optimize, and you renovate. Do not fear the chaos of the world. Use it as the raw material for your next design. You have reclaimed your mind, the most valuable asset in human history. Use it well. Be ruthless with your attention. Be kind to your vision, and never stop building the new world. The loop is open. The architecture is yours.